Uno, dos, one, two, tres, cuatro.
Welcome to Rethink Your Legacy. Good morning, everybody. This is Francisco Servent, your attorney and problem solver at law. And this morning we are here. I'm really grateful, actually, this morning from an invite from a good friend of mine, Lydia, to come actually present today's show in front of a group of real estate agents here at Century 21 in Chandler, because they are going through learning more about probate. So actually this morning, they're going to get the education. Shame. But also, you guys in the audience, my listeners, are going to get the education of really what probate is. And this is something that gets a lot of, I think it gets a lot of publicity about how horrible it is. And so I want to break it down today and actually make it simple. It's not as unknown, really, as I think maybe what some of us consider. This is something that happens. Why do you want to know this? You know, this is something that it's not everybody is affected by probate. You know, we all face things in life, the two things that are unavoidable, right? What are they? Death and taxes, right? We all know that. And so both of those things are my world every day at Keystone Law Firm. And so if you need help with that, please reach out. Don't struggle on your own. That's what our firm does. And this phone number is for you. So jot this down. It's 750-7788, 480-750-7788. If you call that number and you need help with something in the probate system, my team will schedule a free call with you. We'll figure out what's going on, and we'll point you in the right direction. We'll give you some resources. If you need help, we'll let you know what that looks like. 480-750-7788. Why do you need to know about probate? I think for me, the first reason is because this is our family. Like, these are the people we say we love. You know, the most important people in our life, either our kids or maybe it's our parents. And I know for me, this story goes all the way back to my abuelita, my dad's mom, who she lived to a ripe old age in her 80s, but actually her husband passed away when my dad was only 6 years old, and he was the youngest of 6 kids. And what that story has taught me over the years is my grandfather, who I never met, my dad barely knew, my grandfather passed away. He left a good amount of money for my grandma to take care of her, to take care of the kids, but he left absolutely no plan, no instructions about what to do, no advisors to help her figure it out and how to manage it. And so when he passed away, she started asking around for help, didn't know who to go to, went to a really well-meaning family member who ended up losing it all. Losing the entire inheritance. It was gone. And I just look at that and I look and I think that's completely avoidable. And all we need to do is we just need to make sure we're aware of how to avoid it for our loved ones. And so probate is one of the pieces of that puzzle that can completely strip away hundreds of thousands of dollars of your estate. And it affects us while we're alive. It affects us after we pass away. And it is not intended to be the system you use. It is intended to be the system as the last resort. So let's avoid it. Before we avoid it, though, we're going to talk about what it is. Probate is, and if there's anything you take away from today, 2 big takeaways. There are 2 types of probate. There's a probate after death, which we all kind of know about, and there's a probate during life, okay? There's actual probate during life. In Arizona, that lifetime probate is called a guardianship or a conservatorship. Don't worry about those words, that's just what we use in court. There's a living probate, and there's a probate after death. This is the last resort. So if you don't want to deal with those systems, then you put together the plans, okay? And all the other shows that we've done this last year talk about wills and trusts and power of attorneys and all the legal documents to take care of that, to avoid this. Probate is the last resort, okay? So what do we want to cover first? I think I want to cover first the probate after death. because it's the one we hear about a lot. I think there's a lot of buzz about it. And there's more of those cases filed every year than there are the guardianships and the conservatorships, the living probates. Altogether, there's about 14,000 new probate cases filed every year in Arizona. 14,000. There are a ton. And if you look at the statistics, there's about 60,000 people every year that die in Arizona. So you look at those numbers, and it's basically 25% are filing probate. It's ridiculous. You know who gets paid when people go to probate? Us stupid lawyers. Don't give the money to the lawyers. We don't have to give the money to the lawyers. Keep it in your family. Keep it protected. So when we're talking about probate after death, when does that come up? That can come up in a few different circumstances. The first and kind of easiest one is when somebody they owned something that didn't have a beneficiary or joint owner on it. Okay, that's kind of the easiest circumstance. And since we have real estate agents here today, you guys deal with the real estate all the time. You're talking to somebody, they want to list a house for sale, you discover mom or dad died, and it's the son, it's the daughter, and they want to sell the property. And when title comes back and tells you, oh, hey, I'm sorry, the house is just in mom's name and mom's now deceased. What do? They got to use some kind of probate process to be able to get the authority to do that. So why does probate exist? Because mom or dad didn't put a beneficiary on that, and mom or dad isn't here to be able to sign. So they can't sign their legal name anymore. They can't transfer title to anybody. So probate is the system that allows somebody else to sign on their behalf. It's essentially what it is. And so it's a process that makes sure the right person is designated. It's not just going to be somebody who transfers it and steals it, not commits some fraud. But then also the person who signs to sell it or to acquire title, make sure that they distribute it to whoever is legally entitled to it. So if mom passed away and there's a piece of real estate, who's legally entitled to it? Well, it's just mom until the court says otherwise. And there's a whole hierarchy of how that distribution would go if mom didn't have her legal documents in place. So that's what probate does, is it gets that person appointed. Okay, and that appointment in Arizona, we call that person the personal representative. Other states call it the executor. And that personal representative can now sign for the sale or can sign to transfer the title or whatever. But they're responsible for doing it and following it through correctly according to the probate process. We had a brother and sister call us because their mom passed. This was a few years ago. The reason that this is sort of one of the reasons why I've learned to hate probate, even when it's quote unquote simple family situations. So mom died. Brother and sister have always got along, great, friends, their families are friends, everybody's hunky-dory. Mom dies, has to go through probate. Default probate law says it'll be split among her heirs equally. Brother and sister are the heirs, great, they'll get it 50-50, we just have to go through probate to do it. We file the probate paperwork. We represent one of the kids. We file the probate paperwork to get them appointed as the personal representative. That stack of legal documents has to then be sent to the heirs, to both of them. Well, the other one gets the stack of documents. It's like all the class action stuff we get in the mail, right? It's a million pages thick of fine print. It's kind of like that. So receives that document, and one of the big bold things up front is, we are not your lawyer and we can't give you legal advice about all this complicated legal stuff. If you want advice, go find your own independent counsel. Fine. Well, she gets just a little concerned. She's like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I should. So she asks around and gets referred to a probate lawyer who knows that what? What do lawyers say when they want to justify higher fees? They say, this is complicated. I don't know what that lawyer told her, but what ensued was 2 years of litigation. And I have to believe it was because that lawyer saw dollar signs, said, oh my gosh, I can push and dig on this to justify my fees. And in the end, because the accounting was actually done the way the accounting was initially done, After the forensic accounting that they demanded, we discovered that, something was actually put on her side of the balance sheet inaccurately. The end result was she got less because it got corrected, plus she got less from all the attorney's fees she had to pay. That family spent over $50,000 in legal fees and 2 years of fighting, and it just put a giant wedge between their relationship. That's why I hate probate, and I want to avoid it. So if you want to avoid probate, give us a call. If you're in the middle of a probate, give us a call, 480-750-7788. I also have a free gift for our listeners today, so hang out. Come back to the next section after the break because I want to tell you about that free gift, because if you're in the middle of a probate, I think this will help you learn what you need to learn to be able to get through it a little bit easier. All right, we'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Rethink Your Legacy. This is Francisco Servent with Keystone Law Firm, and on today's show, we're going into something that's kind of, I don't know, it's not the more lovely side of what I do, I would say. It's the more needed side sometimes. It's just, when it gets to the point where you have to, this is what we're talking about. So today's topic is all about probate and the different types of probate. And I just want to reiterate, there are two kinds of probates. There's a probate during life. There's a probate after death. And if that's all you walk away with from today's show, you will be smarter than most people out there. And if you need help with something probate related, please feel free to give our office a call. We do offer a free initial phone call, and my office will be happy to schedule that. It's early in the morning, so nobody's there, so you just call this phone number, or you can send a text message to this phone number and say, I think I need some help. They'll call you back Monday first thing, and they'll help you schedule something. The phone number is 480-750-7788. 480-750-7788. And I am giving everybody, I want you to have some resources because, I can't go through everything in just today's show, and you might not want to wait for a whole year of content. So I have written a book on probate in Arizona. It's Arizona's Consumer Guide to Probate. And what I'm offering is a free digital copy for anybody who wants it listening to today's show. And all you have to do is go to our website. It is radio.keystonelawfirm.com. And you can just punch that in on your phone. Just open your browser, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. And it'll ask where you want the website to send it. Enter your name and email. The website will shoot it right off to you. And that book is something that I've written over the years after I think I initially took all the content from a continuing education course I did for attorneys where I just taught them intro to probate from A to Z. And this book is written for consumers, though. So you are welcome to jump on there, radio.keystonelawfirm.com, grab that download. It'll send to your email. You could save it for the future, have it as a reference. And if you're in the middle of a probate mess, I grab this. It's free. It'll give you the basics of what to do, A, B, C, D. And hopefully that will help square you away so that you don't end up creating more problems than what you're already facing. All right, so in probate, right, we talked a little bit about what kind of probate happens after we pass away. And then there's this other giant probate that happens while we're alive. So I want to touch on that one. You might not have experience with it, or maybe you do, but there's this process to help make decisions for somebody if they can't make decisions for themselves. And it can be on any aspect of their life. So it might be financial things, it might be healthcare things. Certainly everybody, maybe everybody has heard about the story of Terry Schiavo, years ago, where the family was fighting over who's going to decide whether to remove life support from her or not. And there was a battle, went all the way up to the Supreme Court, hard fought, tons of, press about that. That, in Arizona, that is done in the probate system. So, how does it happen and when is it needed, right? It's not always needed, but when is it needed? Well, it happens when you're over the age of 18 and you don't have somebody else legally designated to make your decisions. So We had a couple years ago. This is one of my more sad or saddest examples of a guardianship. We had a young guy. Actually, it was a Thursday afternoon, and it was a lady called my office. And I don't usually, my receptionist usually doesn't barge into my office and say, you have to take this call, right? Like I have scheduled appointments. That's when I meet with clients. Well, she barges into my office, she says, you have to take this call. It was like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, what's going on? And she tells me, this is an emergency, get on the phone right now. Pick up the phone, I say, hi, it's Francisco, what can I do? And then this lady starts to tell me the story about her nephew who's in a local hospital here. And that the hospital is telling her and the mom is with her son at the hospital, so aunt is doing this legwork trying to find a lawyer. And they're telling the aunt and the mom, we're now authorized to remove life support from this 23-year-old son because he doesn't have a legal decision maker in place. And because he doesn't, he's in a coma, he's incapacitated, he can't speak for himself. Nobody's legally designated. We've run this up through our ethical board committee, and they've made the decision we're authorized to remove life support. Holy crap, right? Obviously, you're the mom, you're the aunt. That's the last thing you want. They said the only thing that'll stop us is a court order. So she starts frantically calling around to law firms saying, how do I get a court order? And I tell her, it's 4:30 on a Thursday. I can't get a court order today. You got to tell them to not do anything until tomorrow. And I put one of my attorneys on it. She works through the night, gets everything drafted, filed. She's at the courthouse at 8 a.m. By the time she gets there, there are, I think it was 4 other attorneys on this case showing up, and they got shuffled in and battled this out over the course of the morning in front of a judge. It was an attorney the court appoints an attorney for the son since he's incapacitated. They just appoint someone for him. They appoint a guardian ad litem attorney, and then the hospital sent their attorneys in. So here they are duking this out in the court system in front of a judge on a Friday morning, knowing if we don't get a court order before the end of business today, we don't know what the hospital's going to do. And before lunch, the judge orders and appoints the mom and the aunt to be the guardian for their son, their nephew, to make legal decisions. Guess what they did? They said, don't you touch him. We're moving him to a new hospital. Screw you. They got him to a new hospital later that day. New hospital runs all kinds of new tests. I don't even know what, right? Come to find out, he had some raging infection that was just shutting everything down. We get a phone call on Tuesday from the aunt that says he's waking up. He's waking up 3 days later. And there was some raging infection. They flooded him with antibiotics and other medicines, and he started to wake up. And, all because he didn't have a legal document saying my mom can make decisions for me. What he had to go through, what his mom and his aunt had to go through, that's a guardianship. That's a living probate. He became incapacitated. He couldn't communicate for himself. So nobody was designated for him. Nobody could legally make that decision. And the hospitals do have a process to be able to run things up their ethical committee and make those decisions, despite, all the other morality behind it. That costs them a ton of money, costs them a ton of nightmare, and it's avoidable with a simple healthcare directive. That's all it took. That's all it would take. That's a guardianship. Nobody wants to be in that. Nobody wants to be in that. The book that I want you to get will help you learn, if you're stuck in a guardianship, how to navigate some of those pieces. So go to the website, go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com, and get that book for you. If you're in a guardianship already, or you suspect one might be needed to take care maybe of an elderly parent, don't try to navigate that alone. At least get your initial questions answered. That's what we do. That's why we have that free first phone call. Get it scheduled. Call 480-750-7788, or you can send a text message to the same number, 480-750-7788. My team will respond and help you get coordinated to be scheduled on that first phone call. The other types of probate that are out there, we're gonna go into those in more depth after the break here. Before I do, though, there's a whole nother type of guardianship that exists for elderly, like parents, and that's where that can come up. And I'm going to run out of time before this break comes up, so I'll finish this up after the break. But this happens whenever the same thing, somebody becomes, their mental abilities or physical abilities have limited them so they can't make decisions for themselves. I'm going to tell you a story after the break of a lady who had to become the guardian for both of her parents, God forbid, at the same time, because it just happens that way sometimes. And this, again, avoidable just by those parents doing a very simple healthcare directive. So come back after the break for that. But before you go, write this phone number down, 480-750-7788. You can call, leave a message, you can send a text message. Don't navigate through this alone. Let somebody help you. Or go get the book. It's at radio.keystonelawfirm.com. On the website, just type it in your phone, your iPad, your computer, whatever you're on. Or have your son do it if you don't have a phone or a computer. radio.keystonelawfirm.com. And get, drop in your name and email. Let the system send you a free copy of my book, Arizona's Consumer Guide to Probate. Because there's no reason to not have some guidance as you're going through this. There's so much information out there, and it's hard to figure out what applies to me. Does this apply? Should I do that? Should I do this? And the last thing you want to do is make the problems worse. So we'll see you after the break. To pick up, I want to share that story with you on why this lady had to become guardian for both of her parents. Welcome back, and good morning, everybody. This is Francisco Servent with Rethink Your Legacy, and this morning, if there's still anybody here listening to the show, I'd be surprised, because this morning we're actually talking about probate, and if I haven't chased you all away so far, maybe you're just around because you like to, you're like the person who likes to drive by the car accidents and you drive really slow and cause all the other people to drive really slow. You just like to see the disasters happen. I'm just kidding. The probate that we're talking about, the probates that we're talking about today, they are disasters. They're nightmares. There's a whole soap opera you could entertain your life with just sitting in the courtrooms in Arizona and watching probate court. It's something we all should strive to avoid. And like I said from the beginning, if you need help with this, if you're in a probate mess, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Things get worse when you do it alone. So give us a call. The first appointment is free. There's no catch. There's no obligation. It's just a what's going on and can we point you in the right direction. So give us a call, 480-750-7788. You can send a text message to that number if you want, and my team will call you back to get it scheduled. This morning I was invited to get our show, and we're at Century 21 real estate offices with a group of real estate agents, and it's great to be here to do this in front of a live audience. I'm usually staring at my own blank studio walls, so this is great. And so if my listeners are wondering why I'm totally tripping over my words today, it's because I have a live audience this morning. But welcome. So we're giving away the book, my second book, Arizona's Consumer Guide to Probate. If you want that free guide, it's a book. You'll get a digital version of it emailed right to you. Then go over to the website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. You can punch it in on your phone, your iPad, any browser that you have. That's the website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. And you'll just enter your name and email. The system will send it to you right away. Grab it, save it for later. If you're in the mess, if you're in a probate mess for family, you want to grab that because it'll probably tell you exactly what you need to do next. Or, if you think that mess is coming, we get phone calls a lot from adult children who, ask the question of, how can I get my mom or my dad to get their affairs in order? And if you just know they haven't done it and you're just headed for that probate mess, you probably want to grab the book and start to learn. Here's what's going to be required, so beforehand. So grab that, get that, it's free. The story I want to pick up on from before the break is a lady who ended up in a guardianship Remember, that's the living probate for both of her parents. One of the unless you've lived through this or you're in the industry, it's not, you might not know that this happens a lot, where one parent, their health starts to decline, and maybe the other parent, the spouse, is taking care of them. A lot of times an adult child will start to step in and help too. But if they're elderly and one of their health starts to decline, a lot of times the other one's health will decline at the same time. Simply, I think there's a true connection there that actually causes that physical issue, just a sort of a metaphysical connection, but also just the physical demands of taking care of somebody. It just wears the caregiver out. And so in this circumstance, that's what happened. She called because her dad had been placed in a nursing home, and the nursing home was saying nobody has legal authority. I think he went to the hospital discharged him to a nursing home, and the nursing home's like, nobody has authority to make decisions for him. And the daughter was like, what do you mean no one has authority? Like, he's been married 100,000 years. Like, his wife can make decisions for him. And they said, I'm sorry, but no, that doesn't give her legal authority to make all the decisions. We need somebody with legal authority to make decisions. And her mom was really elderly and, was barely able to take care of herself. So she started asking around, how do we get a power of attorney? Found out you can't get a power of attorney after the fact because dad's now incapacitated. Well, what's next? Well, next is a court-ordered guardianship. So she ends up getting referred to us, and we start that process so she can become the guardian, because her mom just wasn't really strong enough to be able to go through that. This court guardianship, nobody was fighting it, nobody was contesting it. She's a single child. There wasn't even other siblings. And in the process of a guardianship, of every single guardianship, the court rules require that an attorney be appointed to represent the person who is incapacitated. So in this case, the dad. So the court plucks them off of a list. So they're kind of a stranger to the family and appoints them. Well, in this particular case, the court-appointed attorney thought he saw things that caused him concern about the daughter's, whether the daughter meant the best for her parents or not, and raised holy hell, and ended up that he petitioned the court to appoint a guardian also for the mom. And this just ended up turning into about a year of guardianship litigation between the daughter and that attorney, which ultimately ended up in the daughter proving she was appropriate to be appointed, and then a couple months later, both parents died. And I've seen so many guardianship cases where the first day they come in and ask for help, they just want to take care of their mom and their dad because their health is declining. But it ends up with a nightmare battle through the court system, causing so much additional stress on the family that a year later the parent dies because there's all this crazy stress. We had another one where a daughter had to become guardian for her dad. Similar situation, but different enough. And in this circumstance, the dad was well enough to be able to speak his desires to the court. Well, if you've been around people who have dementia or Alzheimer's enough, there's a big spectrum of what that disease does. You could be very, very, very mild, or it could be very, very severe, or somewhere in the middle. And in that spectrum, depending on where you are, you can sit and have a very lucid conversation, and that's awesome. Like, we want people to stay that healthy. But if you converse long enough, you realize that they're having short-term memory issues. They're not able to really remember or manage things or take control of their major life decisions, and they really shouldn't be, because they could be taken advantage of. They could be exploited, and we see that too often. So in this circumstance, the daughter, again, nobody was fighting. She just needed to take care of her dad, and he didn't have all the documents in place, and it was too late to get them. But he spoke up to the court through his court-appointed attorney and said, I don't want my daughter to be able to lock me up in jail. And of course, daughter never intends to do that, never intended to do that, doesn't have the power to do that, except for, I guess, his lawyer told him she has the power to put you in memory care, which is a type of nursing home where they don't let you out. I mean, they don't let you wander for your own safety. And he interpreted that as jail, so he said to his lawyer, I want to fight this. And during the course of that fight, some long-lost family member from Florida threw their hat in the ring and said, oh, I'll take care of him. He can move in with me in Florida. And the court agreed. And the court said, that's a fantastic idea. So much better to be with family than it is to be in an institution. And so the whole process of having to gather him up with his 43,000 pills a day and all of his medications and care protocols and everything, re-outfit her house with the proper equipment and blah, 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 all of this out of his pocket, get him moved over there just to find out she calls that long-lost family member frantic. He's in the ER. He's going to the ICU. This is way more than I ever thought it was. He needs to be in care. I'm sending him back. Obviously, gets sent back. And of course, the stress of that whole thing ended up with him passing away just a couple months later. All because these stupid, simple legal documents aren't put in place. This is it. This is why I do this show. So get your free book. Go to the website, get it. radio.keystonelawfirm.com. If you're ready to take action and protect your family and get your documents in place, then give us a call. Get your free first appointment set up. Figure out what your family might need. The phone number, write it down, or go ahead and send a text message right now because my team will respond to it first thing Monday morning. The phone number is 480-750-7788. 480-750-7788. First phone appointment will be scheduled. Figure out what's up, what you need, kind of brainstorm the ideas, either give you some resources if it's super simple, send you on your way, or tell you what the next steps are about getting your family actually protected from this. These are the people that we say we care about, and this is a gift for them. So let's take these steps. Let's get this stuff done. It's Sunday morning. I even forgot. It's Independence Day, right? Declare your independence from the stupid court system. This is how you do it. All right, we'll be back after the break because I want to talk now about the last probate we haven't talked about. I think, in my opinion, it's the absolute worst. I've saved it for the end, so we'll see you in a minute. Good morning and welcome back, everybody. I can't believe I forgot to say happy 4th of July to everybody at the start of the show. So I'll start the end of the show with a happy 4th of July, everybody. I don't know if they've officially banned fireworks, but hopefully we get to see some fireworks. It's so darn dry, so hopefully we do. One of the things that I love about Independence Day is the story of how the founding fathers sort of declared their independence. And for the history buffs out there, you know the story better than I do. But the aspect of it that I really love is they made this monumental change in history. I mean, few people can say like there have been a smaller, like it just was a massive change. Like they put this country on a course of a massive change. One of the things that I love about it is when they first sat there and made that decision, boom, we're going to do this. They really had no idea how they were going to accomplish it. But they started it with a decision. And I love that aspect of it because so many people that I talk to have no idea how they're going to get their affairs arranged. Like it just feels so overwhelming, so confusing. I mean, there's all these concepts, right? What's a healthcare directive and a living will? What's a living will versus a last will? What's a living will versus a living trust? I mean, what's an executor versus a trustee? Like, blah. They just took a deep breath. They stared each other in the eyes and they went, we're doing this. And they just started going. And that's how we encourage our clients. That's how I encourage all of you guys to start down this path. Don't worry about figuring it out how. Just make the decision to do it. The how will come as you as you go through the process. In probate, sometimes the decision is forced on you, and so if you've been forced into the decision, definitely make the decision to go get my free book, Arizona's Probate Guide for Consumers. You go to the website to get that, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. Let yourself get some free help there. The book just walks through step by step. It's not written for lawyers, so it's not in legalese. It's written just very plain English like I teach these shows. So go get that, radio.keystonelawfirm.com, or you can just call us for help. We do a free first phone appointment, and the phone number is 480-750-7788. The last type of probate that I'm saving for the end because in my experience and in my opinion, it's the worst. The probates that happen after we die, they're bad, and we want to avoid them. There's nothing really good about them. But it's just not as bad as what happens while we're alive if it has to do with a probate needed to manage your money. This is called a conservatorship, and if you've never had to deal with this, lucky you. It's great. Don't ever try to deal with this. If you feel like it's being forced on you, before you pull the trigger, try to avoid it. Go seek counsel, find some strategy to see if you can avoid it even still, because it's just a nightmare on drugs. It is horrible. My most recent example of why I hate conservatorship so much was a poor guy, not financially poor, though he wasn't wealthy, but just like I feel so bad for him is why I say this poor guy. He wanted to just live his life out kind of on a golf course. And he's an elderly dude, totally retired, and had enough, Social Security coming in the door, had a very, modest mobile home, but on a golf course. And he had the local golf course club that he could spend all day with his buddies and his friends at. He could golf every day, and that was his life, and he loved it. Until somebody at the bank, and this is how it can happen, somebody at the bank just thought maybe he was being taken advantage of financially, so they ran the flag up the pole and filed a suspicion of elder abuse and exploitation report. When that happens, and he had no control over that, he didn't even know that happened until after the fact. What happened was we got a phone call from him one day. It was I forget what time it was in the day, but it was one of those emergency calls where, oh my gosh, we got to get on the phone with this guy right now. And he said, someone just told me I have a court hearing tomorrow at 11:30, like way on the other side of town, like whatever side of town you live on, think of an hour away at that courthouse. He's like, why do I have to go to court? So we quickly look up the court docket and we figured out, oh my gosh, somebody has filed an emergency conservatorship and guardianship over you to take control of all your assets. It's this fiduciary company you don't know, this attorney you don't know, that he said he's never had any business with, and they've had the court schedule an emergency hearing. It was initially set to be without notice to him, so for him to not even know it was going to happen until after the fact, somehow he got wind of it, called us, and we said, holy crap, can we please send an attorney with you? Of course, yes, please, let's go. So it was me that got that appointment. I picked him up and took him to court, and 11:30 in the morning. What do government employees do really strictly at 12 o'clock every day? Lunch. They go to lunch. Yeah, so we had 30 minutes to address this guy's whole financial life and all these allegations. There was a adult protective services agent in there who provided 30 minutes of testimony on why they suspected this guy was being exploited. The judge turned to me and said, well, Mr. Servant? And I said, I'd like my client to testify. And the judge said, well, we're going to lunch and we don't really have time for more testimony, so I think I'm just going to enter the orders and schedule a hearing to let your client come back and testify later. Objection, this rule, this statute, that statute, Your Honor, that can't happen, it's not legal, you're not allowed, there's not justification, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for lodging your arguments, Mr. Servant. I'm granting the orders. The orders granted this complete stranger fiduciary company to freeze all of his assets. And by all of his assets, this guy wasn't wealthy. He had $100,000 or so in an IRA. He had this mobile home that was paid off, and he had a little bit of money in savings. All of them frozen. He's deer in the headlights. What just happened to my life? He's estranged from his family, so he doesn't have any family members to come in and help support him through this. So we end up helping support him through this. We fight this thing tooth and nail until finally we get one of his friends designated as the person, and then he dies. Through that process, it took about 8 months. All of these professionals, the court-appointed attorney, the guardian ad litem was appointed, the fiduciary who was appointed, their attorney who was now authorized to do all this work, all those professionals, and ended up that the fiduciary ended up stepping down because there was obvious wrongdoing in place, and a new fiduciary came on board. Oh, joy. At the end of that, the fees were $120,000 and basically wiped his estate to nothing. That's a conservatorship. That's the worst nightmare in my mind in probate, and we got to avoid that. So if you want to avoid those, or God forbid, if you're in the middle of that, call for help. Let us help you navigate that. 480-750-7788, or send us a text message. Let's get your first call scheduled so we can point you in the right direction. 480-750-7788. And you know what? If you just want some help, get that book. Get my free book. It's at the website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. It's Arizona's Consumer Guide to Probate, and it'll walk you through some of these probate issues. As much as I can possibly pack it into a book, it's in there at radio.keystonelawfirm.com. That is all the time we have for you guys today. Happy 4th of July. Hey, it's Independence Day. Go declare your independence from that stupid court system, and this is how you do it. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. Go make it a great day, everybody.